So I wanted to take 1 minute to introduce you to my teachers, because I didn't just sort of find a bunch of books and read about it. I actually went out and tried to find the people that would teach me. And so, like right now, I'm holding here. This is a photo, and we'll put it on the screen of Francisco Aguabella, who was my first real mentor. And he took me in, if you will, as an apprentice. And I played and studied with him back in the 1980s, throughout all of the 80s, in fact. And he was my first mentor. And because of him, he was from Matanzas, Cuba. And he was as proud of being from Matanzas, Cuba as anybody could be of their origin. And we here in the United States, everything was kind of focused around Havana in terms of if you were playing rumba, or the popular music groups were all from, or we thought they were from Havana. It maybe turned out to not be true, but that's what we knew. And so in the early 1980s, I made a decision to go to Cuba, even though it was illegal. And you could, in fact, go to jail for going to Cuba. But I realized that if I wanted to play Cuban music, I had to go to Cuba. I don't think that's any different than a jazz musician, let's say, from any country, Russia. At some point, you got to go to New York City. You want to play bebop? You got to go, if you can. So a long and kind of a fun story that I won't share today, but maybe sometime in the future. In 1984, I went to Cuba, and because Francisco was my mentor, I went to Matanzas, Cuba. And at that time then, incredibly luckily and thanks to all the spirits, if you will, I met this gentleman. His name is Esteban Vega Bacallao. We'll put his photo on the screen. Better known as Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha was the quinto player for the Guaguancó Matancero, which became the Muñequitos de Matanzas. But he was also considered the most important folkloric drummer actually in Cuba, but certainly in Matanzas. And he became, along with Francisco, my Bata mentor. And I spent year after year going to his house to study with Cha-Cha. And Cha-Cha had a number of master drummers that played with him. That included Jesus Alfonso, who was then the quinto player for the Muñequitos de Matanzas and its musical director. That also included Enrique Mesa, who was a member of Afro-Cuba de Matanzas, along also with Pedro Tapanes, also known as Peyo. And all these guys became my mentors because they were part of Cha-Cha's Bata battery. And then also this gentleman, Daniel Alfonso, who became my hands-on Bata teacher for 20 years. And Daniel did not play in Afro-Cuba or the Muñequitos, but he was a master drummer and was someone that taught me a lot of stuff. And since I'm holding up pictures of my teachers, I should say that here on CongaMasterclass.com, we have included an entire oro seco, but not, believe it or not, from the province of Matanzas. We haven't done that yet. We might. but we have included an entire Oroseco from the province of La Habana. And that was taught to me by different people, but in particular, Regino Jimenez Sayes, who became not only my teacher and my mentor, but actually my godfather. And he was the musical director of Danza Moderna Nacional de Cuba. And he taught me the style of bata drumming that I play and teach. And the last photo I want to show you then, he's from Havana. This is a photo of Regino and Cha-Cha together. Havana, Matanzas. This was from a day that I drove Regino to Cha-Cha's house and spent several days. They had known each other, but they knew each other a lot better at the end of those couple of days. So I wanted to share with you then my roots, if you will. How do I end up teaching anything on CongoMasterclass.com? I'm not Cuban. Wasn't born into those traditions. I'm a student of that music. But these are the guys that taught me and yeah, beat me up and yelled at me when I made mistakes. But for now over 40 years, actually, I'm looking back at these pictures, every one of them has passed on. So I don't have, I can't say that I'm with them anymore, except they're with me inside of me. But when I teach, I try to teach exactly how they showed me it should go and to represent them and their knowledge as best as I can to pass that on. So that's a little bit of Mike Spyro personal biography as it relates specifically to the site and to teaching you as best as I've been able to what I've learned. So that takes me then to the ARARA videos that are now being posted on the site. Cha-Cha, Daniel, and Peyo, and Enrique Mesa, a name that I mentioned before. They taught me bata drumming, and they taught me bembe, and they taught me other, rumba and other forms of Cuban music. But there were other genres of music that they would not teach me. Specifically, Olokun and Arara. Those were two genres that they said were still not to be shared outside of the Cabildo. The Cabildo meaning the Cabildo represents a specific ethnic and or religious and or language group of Africans that were brought to Cuba as slaves. And the Cabildo is like a self-help group, if you will, of those specific peoples then that would help each other, maybe pay for a funeral, pay for members, their mom's funeral, or maybe a wedding, or those kinds of things. And the Olokun and Arara music and ceremony, unlike the Yoruba Lukumi Bata stuff, or Bembe, or Yesa, was a secret. It wasn't supposed to be taught to anybody. And then one day, back in the 90s, Peyo and his godson and student, and one of my teachers, whose picture I'll put up in a minute, Luis Cancino, who is still alive. I'm much older than he is. And Peyo's wife, Sulima Echeverria, who was part of the Arará Cabildo. They came to me and they said, come on, we're going to the backyard. We're going to the backyard. Why are we going to the backyard? We want to show you something. Okay, cool. What? They got a bucket, like literally a piece of iron, and an old conga drum that was literally, the staves had completely come unglued. There was maybe like 2 tuning pegs or lugs. We're going to teach you some arará. I was like, I hadn't asked for that. I didn't ask them to do that. And I said, well, I'm honored and shocked, but why? And they said, you now have learned enough stuff that you also need to learn some of this in order to understand and complement what you're playing over here. You can't show it to anybody, but we're going to show it to you. Oh, and to my godbrother, Mark Lamson, whose name you may know from a recording I did called Bataketu. And they took the 2 of us literally into the backyard with literally a piece of like a metal, it wasn't a cowbell, but that became the cowbell. And this bucket, and they started to teach us arará and to tell us, but you can't teach it you can't show it to anybody. I'm not sure how we were supposed to practice it or learn it when we got back to the States, because I wasn't going to show it to anybody. As the years went by, they would then continue my education of arará music. But the arará music still was very secretive. It wasn't played out in public, actually hardly at all. The Grupo Afro-Cuba de Matanzas would perform some of it in public as a part of their show. But it was nothing like other forms of music that were out in public. But they kept teaching me and teaching me songs and teaching me rhythms. And I need to be specific. Teaching me the genre of arará called Savalú, which is from the city of Matanzas. There are 3 forms of arará in the province of Matanzas. In the town of Perico, they play Dahomey. And in the town of Jovellanos, they play Mahinu. Those are the styles that they're called. And I don't know those. Those are separate forms. It can be confusing because then 3 separate forms of arará might migrate to the capital of Havana and enter folkloric groups there, and then they kind of get mishmashed together. But in the province of Matanzas, where arará is from, those 3 forms are separate and they don't mix them. So the knowledge that I have that was taught to me by Peyo, Sulima, Luisito, and then I'm going to mention some other names of current teachers. This is specifically Savalú. So now cut to about 2013, 2015. They've been teaching me Arará. I haven't showed it to anybody. Not mine to share. And I went to Cuba with some of my students, and in particular, Joe Galvin. And I introduced Joe to them, and Joe has like heard some Arará music. Again, there are recordings of Afro-Cuba playing it. And he's like learned all these songs. He's learned the rhythms kind of on his own, really, with my help to a degree. And he starts singing or asking if he can take a song class with them. And particularly with Sulima and her sister Maritza. And so they start singing, and he answers every song, and they're looking at him like, you know this? And he said, every recording I could ever find, I've learned. And they go, come here, sit down. And they start just force feeding him songs. Because he's like this, amazing brain, and he just can learn it on the spot, something I could never do. Well, Sulima's married to Peyo, so we're in their house, and she's teaching him these songs, and then she'll go, Peyo, ven acá, come here. What's the rhythm to this one? And Peyo would start to play the rhythm, and then the next thing you know, I'm playing the support drum part, and all of a sudden, like we're having a full Arará class, which eventually leads then to Joe asking them, look, I'm a professor of music. I can write all this out, in music notation. Would you have any interest in that? Because folkloric music traditionally is an oral tradition. You just learn it from this. You don't write notation and all that. And they said, actually, we would really like that. And that kind of really took me back. Like that, I was like, really? And they said, yeah, because the elders are dying, and if we don't document it, we're going to lose it. And in fact, I can tell you that has happened in a number of different musical genres in Cuba that I know of, let alone ones that I don't know of. The genre of Olokun has been dying because the elders have passed away and taken their knowledge with them. There are songs in the Yesa tradition that are lost because the elders died and didn't pass it along, didn't document it. And so they asked Joe to document as much as he could in terms of notation, and for the purpose of saving it for them. And that then turned into a book that Joe and I published together, Music of the Savalú Tradition, which is both rhythms and songs that we wrote notation and words and explanations and history. And they asked us to publish it. They wanted the world to know, okay, yeah, it was a secret for all this time, but now they want the world to know what their music is and what it's about and how to play it and how to sing it. And so the book that Joe and I talk about, which is available at Sure Publications, it's a PDF download, was a book that we wrote for them, and then they not just gave us permission, but wanted us to publish. And I've said it before, I'm being redundant, I'm saying it again. We encourage you to get the book because all of the money from that book goes to them, goes to that cabildo, goes to those specific people that you can see on the screen. These are their names written out on the day that we recorded them playing this music. And so the videos that we are now uploading here at congomasterclass.com, the Arará videos, are sort of the top 40 Foduses. Fodu means God, deity. So it's the same as Orisha. In Arará, the Foduses are the Orichas. So we have Afra, which is Elegua. We have the Bandera, which is not specific to an Orisha. It's the rhythm that you march with the flag to. And there's a photo that we'll put up of the reina, if you will, or the lead singer of the cabildo, Alida Leisea, who taught me and Joe the songs, with the flag. And so we're teaching Bandera, we're teaching Afra, we're teaching Asohano, which is Babaluaye, we're teaching Mase, which is Ochun, and we're teaching Ebioso, which is Chango. When I say is, meaning that's the comparative to the Lukumi or Yoruba tradition. And if we had had more time, we would have done Afrekete, which is Yemaya. There are many, many, many other Foduses that we just didn't have time to do. Hopefully, maybe in the future, we'll have an opportunity to do that. But these videos then are how we were taught by our teachers, and we're representing them and the knowledge that they gave to us as a way of spreading the word. And we hope that you enjoy it, learn from it, and appreciate the beauty of this extremely difficult music. And on that note, see you at the videos.